They were all dead. The final gunshot was an exclamation mark to everything that had led to this point. I released my finger from the trigger, and then it was over.
Remedy Entertainment is one of my favorite game studios. I know a lot of people find their games weird, and I would say that Remedy games usually have some issues, but we also feel unique. Playing a Remedy game is always a distinctive experience, different from mainstream AAA games. And that's why I'm always excited about their games. Max Payne is my favorite Remedy game, and it is in general a defining game for me, defining what games can be. Recently, some news emerged regarding the remake of Max Payne, so I decided to check how the original version plays today, and I was surprised that even after more than 23 years since its release, it still plays really well, and generally feels great because of its insanely charismatic character, engaging storytelling, and gunplay. It might sound like too much, but personally I think this game is a timeless masterpiece, and in this video I will try to explain why. Don't get me wrong, I am excited about the remake and definitely will play it, but even without the remake, the game still plays great even today. I want to mention, just in case, I played it with a complete fix pack that fixes some technical issues and updates the textures a bit. Great pack if you want to try it today. I'll put the link in the description. Well, let's dive into what makes Max Payne so good.
Just when you thought you had reached the deepest depths of horror, it suddenly got worse. How to turn off that small voice inside your head that started to whisper that you should be glad that now, if not before, your revenge was justifiable on any conceivable moral scale. That small voice proved, beyond any doubt, that I was damned.
Speaking in general terms, what makes this game great is its consistency. It is a consistent game. Each part fits with other parts, and the glue that holds all the parts together is the theme of Noir. It is everywhere, in the story, characters, music, gameplay, loading screens, and even in the menu. When you try to exit the game, it doesn't just ask you do you want to leave the game, it asks you various questions that are sort of tied to the story, and this adds to the immersion. Music is another example. The main theme of this game is one of my favorite compositions ever. There are no lyrics, only emotive sounds that set the tone for the game. It is impossible to discuss the noir theme of Max Payne separately from other parts because it runs throughout the entire game, but I just want to emphasize that the noir theme is what holds the whole game together.
I had taken on the role of the mythic detective, Bogart as Marlowe, or as Sam Spade going after the Maltese Falcon to unravel all the mysteries.
I don't think it is a coincidence that the game's title is the name of its protagonist, Max Payne, as this is the game's best part. He's a typical noir protagonist, but in video games we don't have many characters like this. And Max Payne is a great example of this noir protagonist archetype. He constantly reflects and comments what's going on around him, and he usually does it in a very dramatic, even poetic way.
Death was in the air at Roscoe Street. I'd have to find Alex fast. Seen from this height, the night seemed to stretch on to eternity. A hint of desperation had crept into the snowstorm, as if it was trying to get it all out before the end.
He also jokes a lot, usually in a dark, cynical way, and he jokes even when facing immediate danger.
Pleased to meet you. I'm Frankie the Bat Niagara.
Niagara, as in you cry a lot? He had a baseball bat and I was tied to a chair. Pissing him off was the smart thing to do. Where's Lupino?
Screw you!
Bad start, Vinny.
Police brutality!
I rate pretty high on that.
It is a pleasure listening to Max in this game. His comments and jokes add to the noir vibe and sort of ease the tension between fights. A very cool part of the first Max Payne game is Max's face. He was played by the game's lead writer, Sam Lake. Sam Lake is not a professional actor, but because of that, Max Payne looks a bit less serious and more down to earth, which I think added a lot to the character's charm. Sam Lake also sometimes has these weird, funny faces, very memorable. Another huge part of Max Payne's personality is his voice. In all three games, he is voiced by James McCaffrey, who unfortunately died almost 2 years ago. He had such an incredible deep voice, just listen to him. This is a video recorded by Remedy for Max Payne's 20-year anniversary, I'll put the link in the description.
Birthdays are like regrets. They just keep coming. each one a new scar that slows you down and drags you closer to your grave.
When I think about Max Payne as a character, he reminds me a lot of John McClane from Die Hard. Before Die Hard, most action movie heroes were jacked and killed everyone without blinking an eye. John McClane, on the other hand, is a sort of sensitive hero. He feels pain, he tries to quit smoking, and he looks like a relatively normal person. He's more humane. Max Payne as a game made a similar move in action games. It presented a more humane character compared to, for example, Doom Guy from Doom. And this character, Max Payne, is a huge part of the game's charm.
The truth split my skull open, a glaring green light washing the lies away. All of my past was just fragmented still shots, words hanging in the air like balloons. I was in a graphic novel, funny as hell. It was the most horrible thing I could think of.
The story in Max Payne is a typical noir story. One day, a relatively happy NUPD officer, Max Payne, comes home and finds his wife and newborn daughter killed by armed junkies who are high on a drug called Valkyr. After that, Max transfers to the Drug Enforcement Administration and becomes this cool noir character. The game takes place 3 years after Max's family is killed when he works undercover for the crime family that controls the trafficking of Valkyr, basically avenging his family. In this process, he discovers that this story is more complicated, and there is a huge conspiracy that goes deep. So again, it is a relatively typical noir story, but what really matters is how it's told. The narrative design of this game is incredibly immersive and engaging. The main way you learn the story is through graphic novels. Instead of doing typical cutscenes, developers used basically comics. These comics are stylized photos of real people, and because of that they aged really well. This is such a simple but genius idea. All of them are voiced, so it feels similar to watching cutscenes, but again, because of stylized pictures, they look beautiful even today. Another interesting aspect of the game's narrative design is when you see these graphic novels. Usually you get one at the beginning of a chapter, one at the end, and multiple throughout the chapter. So narrative and gameplay moments are intertwined, which makes the storytelling more engaging. Quite often, during a chapter, you encounter a letter, or a TV, or something else, and interacting with it gives you a small comics. One very cool thing is that there are no in-game markers that directly instruct you to interact with something. This game has a minimalistic interface. There is no minimap, just HP and ammo, and it can be confusing. Sometimes it is not clear what to do or where to go. But the game still gives you cues in other ways. For example, Max comments on objects, hinting that you can interact with them.
The headlines were a depressing read. The headlines were screaming bloody murder. The storm was a screaming duet with the approaching prowl car sirens.
I think this minimalistic interface and audio cues for Max pay off with immersion. The game does not impose optional graphic novels on you. You encounter them yourself as a part of gameplay. The last, but certainly not least, part of Max Payne's greatness is its gunplay. The graphics feels outdated, however, because of the photo textures the game looks not that bad. Despite the graphics, the gunplay is incredible. It is a high-stakes gameplay. Both you and your enemies are squishy. You can easily get one-shotted by a shotgun at a close range. And you will. You die a lot in this game.
Hey!
The same goes for enemies. All of them except bosses die from a headshot. In most cases you face more than one enemy, and to overcome this challenge you can use slow motion or bullet time. When this game came out, it revolutionized bullet time in games. It raised the standard so high that bullet time in this game is still amazing. Very few games came close to Max Payne in that regard. Now, why exactly does slow motion feel so great in Max Payne? Generally, the gameplay is very fast. Most fights are matters of 10 to 20 seconds. Usually you enter a room with multiple enemies or multiple enemies coming at you, and you can die in a second. You need to move a lot to evade their bullets. But when you use slow motion you can breathe. You have a bit of time to aim. Slow motion creates islands of relative control in the ocean of fast-paced and almost chaotic combat. The switch between these two perceptions of time feels incredible. One reason why the combat in Max Payne is so fast is that there is no cover system. Of course you can cover behind walls or some objects, but generally the game incentivizes you to play aggressively. You jump into a room in slow motion and quickly kill everyone. It often creates almost cinematic scenes. Another important aspect of gunplay is bullet trails. In a lot of games, for example in GTA, bullet trails are represented by white lines. In Max Payne, you see the actual bullets, where objects, you can clearly see them in slow motion. There is also a lot of interactivity. Bullets leave holes, and you can shoot a lot of objects, for example, fire extinguishers. It contributes to the feeling that bullets are actual objects that do damage. Small but important detail. When you and your enemies shoot, the shells and magazines fall to the floor and remain there. So when you finish an intense fight, you see a lot of holes from bullets, shells and magazines on the floor. You see that there was some action. Because of all these details, the gunplay in this game feels heavy. Generally, I would say that Max Payne's combat is designed in a sandbox manner. Take Uncharted for example. Uncharted games have a lot of cool, directed combat scenes. When you play Uncharted 4, it feels like you're in an action movie with well-designed scenes. But you play it the second time, and the scenes are mostly the same. Max Payne's combat is designed in the opposite way. Just in case, I'm not saying that Uncharted is worse or better, I mention it to illustrate the difference. In Max Payne, there are no pre-designed scenes, but there are a lot of cool situations that emerge in your playthrough. You create them on your own. It is up to you how to kill everyone. You can play it a bit more safely, or you can just jump into the fight. You can use bullet times and be more precise with your shots, or you can just run around and shoot at everything. All these micro decisions lead to some cool situations that feel owned by you.
Something clicked for the final time. My mind had never been so clear, as if somewhere high above the storm clouds were already gone, cold stars blazing from the black skies.
As I tried to show in this video, Max Payne is still a relevant game that impresses you with a consistent noir tone, a very cool protagonist, immersive storytelling and high-stakes gunplay. Because of all these elements and how they complement each other, this game, at least in my heart, is a timeless masterpiece. If you haven't played Max Payne, I implore you to try it. Of course you can wait for the remake, but even the original version still plays great. As always, if you enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe.
Woden grinned smugly. It was the grin of a winner. That made two of us.